Hello, today we'll be talking about teratogens. Teratogens can be environmental toxins, agents, or factors which cause malformation of an embryo. We'll start with talking about the development of the embryo and fetus. The central nervous system is a layer of cells on the outer surface of the embryo. This is visible after 1 month after conception. This continues to appear throughout embryo phases and into fetal stages. Neurons continue to grow and migrate to permanent locations. These migration routes are predetermined. Neuronal migration or migration routes are predetermined and continue to migrate between 6 and 24 weeks. Cells migrate to particular points or partners. They create different levels, structures, and regions of the brain. Layers of the brain are generated from the inside out. Therefore, cells are constantly migrating. Teratogens can cause neuronal migration disruptions. This will lead to abnormal migration, malformation, and damage. Teratogens are most harmful during sensitive periods. Sensitive periods are defined as a time during which the organism is especially vulnerable to external factors that alter or modify its structure or function. Developing structures are in critical parts of development during particular times, and during those particular times, they're prone to external factors and damage. For example, the development of each limb, organ, and sensory system are more rapid at a distinct period, and during that distinct period are therefore more vulnerable to damage during that time. For example, eye development is rapid in the second month of a pregnancy. During that second month, visual systems are vulnerable during that time. All major organ systems differentiate early in gestation. This slows towards the end of gestation. The likelihood of gross structural malformation declines. The older the fetuses are at much less risk than younger ones. Therefore, the effects of toxins depends on the timing rather than the nature of the toxin itself. Two different toxins can have similar effects at the same phase of prenatal life, and neither may have any effect at a later stage. Prenatal experiences can have immediate effects. For example, cocaine and heroin. They affect neonatal functioning and they have long-term sleep effects. Evolution has affected human mental and physical architecture due to our genetic makeup and evolutionary history, creating both psychological and biological protective factors. I will be giving you an example of both a psychological and biological protective factor. We'll start with a psychological one. An example of one is this. Take a second to think about how you feel when I surprised you with this photo. You may have felt disgust. This is a natural feeling, since those who did not feel feelings of disgust may have gone near such molds and algae and would not have lived and would have perished. But those of us who find disgust in these types of photos or on food would stay away from them and therefore survive. Now for a biological one. I'm going to ask you to think for a minute. What is a symptom that is common during the beginning stages of a woman's pregnancy? Morning sickness might have been what comes to mind immediately. Morning sickness is actually an evolutionary defense mechanism. Since fetuses are vulnerable to poisons, Women may find themselves hypersensitive to foods that could damage the baby. The timed onset and offset of morning sickness occurs during sensitive periods during development, and therefore, morning sickness is a healthy active defense mechanism. Now for my next question. What liquid, when consumed by a pregnant woman, can cause serious harm to her fetus? You may be thinking alcohol, but then that goes back to the other questions. Why don't pregnant women have an aversion to alcohol during their pregnancies when it is so dangerous? Humans don't have an aversion to alcohol because alcohol is relatively new to our evolutionary history, and therefore we have not evolved a system to deal with alcohol. Ethanol is commonly found in alcohol, and it's ethanol that has done damage to fetuses, such as malformation, growth deficiencies, damage to the central nervous system, mental retardation, and seizures. We also see low muscle tone and motor impairments, and craniofacial abnormalities such as narrowing of the forehead, a small nose and midface, and low nasal bridge. Fetal alcohol syndrome is the leading cause of mental retardation with known causation. Women who drink excessively increase their chances of spontaneous abortions, stillbirths, and preterm deliveries. But it wasn't discovered until 1973 by Abel and her colleagues that made it publicly aware of fetal alcohol syndrome. Their study consisted of pregnant women who drank 5 or more drinks at least twice a week. The study also indicated that there was no relationship between moderate alcohol consumption during the first trimester of a pregnancy and fetal malformations. Of course, this was done in 1973. So we should not assume that moderate drinking during pregnancy has no ill effects. The most comprehensive studies on prenatal alcohol effects average 2 drinks a day. With 2 drinks a day, on longitudinal studies, we see a 7-point decrease in IQ among 7-year-old children, deficits in attention in children from ages 4 to 14, disruptions in ability to pay attention to both visual and auditory presented stimuli, and higher rates overall of criminality, sexual behavior, depression, suicide, and parental neglect of their own children once they become adults.